call to order this Monday, May 4th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting, Oconee County. Let's see, Mike, would you do us the pleasure of invocation?
I will. Pray with me if you will. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together today. Please guide our thoughts and words and help us make wise decisions to help guide the future of our county for the benefit of all of our citizens. Give us the wisdom and clarity to work together and accomplish that task at hand. Please continue to watch over first responders, healthcare workers, and all those who have dedicated themselves to the health and safety and betterment of our county and our fellow man. We thank you for all your tremendous blessings. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mike. Mr. Marcingill, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right, do we have any public comments for non-agenda items?
I have one, yes, sir.
Okay. Just a reminder,
4 minutes.
we usually don't have a limit here. It's 4 minutes, but we'll let you speak longer if you need to, and just announce your name and let folks know who you are for the record.
My name's Carl Dieter, K-A-R-L-D-I-E-T-E-R. I hope I won't stumble on my words. I have a big gap where the tooth fell out, and my tongue wants to find that all the time. I'd like to make a public comment on the proposed development, which I understand is now in limbo, between Route 130 and the Kiwi River. And along the Kiwi River, it extends from the Little River to about 3/4 of a mile south of Holder's Landing. And so the Greenhouse Development LLC is proposing to develop that property. And the comment that I want to make to the Planning Commission is I'm asking the Planning Commission to propose to the county the implementation of a 100-foot riparian buffer zone that would lie between the Army Corps of Engineers property line and the area to be developed for the protection of the natural habitat of riparian buffers, to enhance the water quality, and to maintain the scenic beauty of this section of the river. So from Lawrence Bridge to the nuclear station is 6.5 miles, and there are no boat docks along that entire section of the river. And about a half mile below Holder's Landing and about a half mile above Holder's Landing, there are a few vacation homes that are along the river, but they do not provide any great visual impairment to the scenic beauty of the river. So that 6.5 mile section is probably the only unspoiled section of Lake Hartwell that remains in the river valleys today. The proposed Kiwi River development would negatively impact the beauty and recreational aspects of this area, for example, fishing, boating, kayaking, etc. The plats call for waterfront properties from about 1/2 mile north of the Little River to about 1 mile south of Holder's Landing. The proposed project is apparently on hold because of the proposed density, about 1,900 homes and townhouses. The developers, in my view, have some promising claims, and that is excluding the townhouses. They said they wanted to save as many trees as possible and to have green spaces. And they also indicate that they would like to put in a marina that has gas for boats and presumably other amenities, which would minimize the number of boat docks. I don't know where they're going to do that, because even at high water level, which is 660 feet for Lake Hartwell, even at that high full pond level, I have a hard time getting my kayak through the mud flats about 1/2 mile below Holder's Landing. So in trying to educate myself about riparian buffers, I looked online and I found some discussions and policies that included a very, very long study out of Clemson University that was around 100 pages. And I admit that I haven't gotten around to reading that and studying it in detail. But I found some additional information when I looked on the policies and regulations of the surrounding counties, which were Pickens and Andersons, both of which have implemented 50-foot riparian buffers for small acreage and 100-foot riparian buffers for much larger bodies of water, such as Lake Hartwell and the Kiwi River area. The Pickens County document was interesting because it gave a whole list of the benefits of riparian buffers. And I would like to submit for the record that list of benefits that were in the Pickens County policies, a white paper that I wrote up analyzing some of the aspects of the development along the Kiwi River, as well as my public comments to the commission today. One of the things that struck me is that 1,900 homes is projected for that area. Only 111 would be lakefront properties. And it would seem to me it would be an immense benefit to the large community if you had the 100-foot riparian buffer and then you had walking trails along the riverfront so that 4,000 people could enjoy the riverfront rather than just 100 to 200. So I'll submit then my white paper, the comments that I've made in these past few minutes, as well as that list of benefits that I found on the Pickens County website. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, sir. Did you get his name? Mr. Peter?
That's the list of benefits.
No, this is the list of benefits.
And this is the list of Thank you.
Ms. Hester, that's all the public comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have any commission member comments? I have one. I would like to welcome Mrs. Deanne Hester. She's our new planning director. We're glad to have you aboard.
Thank you.
And if you want to, you're welcome to give a little bit of your background to the public, if you feel so inclined.
I am born and raised in Middle Georgia, and so this is my first time living out of Georgia. So, but I am enjoying the area already. So it's a beautiful county, and I look forward to serving here. And as a resident now, officially this past weekend, finally, moving is terrible. Let me just say, moving is terrible. But I'm officially done to a full-time resident, and it is important to me that what the commission does here affects me personally, not just through my job, so I take that very seriously. And I have been in this type of work for a number of years now, and in a county that was very similar, a bit smaller, but very similar in the mixture of rural and lake, and, you know, trying to support long-term citizens as well as growth in a positive way. So I look forward to working with everybody in the county.
Thank you. Now we have staff comments.
One comment, Mr. Chumley is not here tonight. He was unavailable, so he wanted me to let y'all know he was not gonna be here tonight. And, I believe I mentioned to everybody that I do not have minutes for March because they were not prepared. We will have those at the next meeting for you to vote on.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I need to make a motion for, we need to make Ms. Hesser the secretary.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion. Do we need to ask her if she's willing to do that?
Well, we'll have the motion and then we'll ask her if she's willing to accept. Mrs. Hester, you willing to accept the position of secretary?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, do we have any discussion on the motion and the second to the motion? All in favor?
Unanimous?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Do I have a motion to approve the April minutes? It should be in front of y'all.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? All in favor?
Unanimous?
All right, so we're on agenda item number 7, discussion regarding Chapter 38, potential amendments. This, for all the folks out there, Chapter 38 is our zoning ordinance, pretty lengthy. So we will be working on overhaul of that ordinance, similarly to what we have worked on with Chapter 32 subdivisions and Chapter 26 roads and bridges.
Do we know where that is in the process? The 32 and chapter 26?
Chapter 32 and 26 are with the council. I'll just leave it at that. So I'm gonna lay down a few ground rules if you guys are acceptable to this, because this review is probably gonna take multiple meetings to get through. The first is I would like to limit our meeting to 7:45 tonight due to people having other engagements. Do I have a motion to limit our meeting to 7:45?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, the next thing is, I know everybody has looked through Chapter 38, the draft that Mickey has graciously worked up. There are changes and then there are red questions. The red questions are what we want to discuss tonight. We'll be lucky to get through those, and then we'll come back once we get answers, work to get answers to the red questions, then Mickey can compile those responses or paragraphs, and then come back with a document that we can eventually vote on. So that's the goal. We may need staff's help on some of these questions.
I signed up for public comment on
On this,
this issue.
okay, I see you did, and all right, public comments for Chapter 38. Mr. Cotner. I apologize.
All right, understand.
I need to read my agenda, don't I?
Mr. Chairman and Commission members, thank you for this opportunity. I do appreciate it. I have reviewed the proposed changes, and I know you haven't discussed them or anything, but I'd like to give you a little of my input on what the proposed changes entail. And I'm kind of dismayed at what I see.
And Mr. Cotner, I would ask that if you can provide that on the record to Mrs. Hester, that way we can use it in writing if you've got them.
I'm sorry, I don't have anything in writing, I'm speaking.
Right fast then, aren't we? All right,
I can, I'll be glad to provide the input in writing, maybe at your next meeting, or something like that. One of the proposed changes is to take away council's authority to zone. The only zoning that would be allowed would be property that the county owns, and they could not do what's presumed to be top-down zoning. That's a key power, a key resource the council has to control growth in the county, and we really shouldn't be taking away their ability to zone as they see fit. The other proposed change is to take away the planning district method of zoning. That's a very complicated process that requires lots of committees and back and forth. I can understand why it's looked at as very complex and time-consuming, but it was used I think, very successfully in the Fairplay area to go through their zoning activity here a few years back. And it's the only process left that allows petitioning to the council to actually look at that kind of zoning. And I might mention that when petitions are put forward for something like this, if they have the required percentage, say 30 or 40%, that's just a request to council to consider zoning. It doesn't determine zoning. It doesn't set anything in stone. It's just a group of citizens saying, hey, in this particular area, we'd like council to consider a zoning action. And then it's up to council and planning commission to review it, have meetings and whatnot. But to take that particular method of rezoning out entirely, I think it's just inappropriate. And a third, we used to have a small area zoning that allowed petitioning. and that was removed a while back. I really would recommend that you put back in the ability to petition for small areas. Again, that's the only way for a group, an area, to get before council and say, hey, we'd like you to consider zoning this area. Again, it doesn't set the zoning, doesn't do anything except raise the issue. I guess I'm afraid long-term that there's a misconception in the county that zoning is a property right, that I have the right to have the zoning that I want. That's really not the course of zoning. That's not the intent of zoning. Zoning is intended as a tool for council to manage growth. And Lord knows we've got enough growth going on. We've got plenty of growth coming into the county. And if we don't manage that properly, it's just going to be out of control. And we're going to have a mess on our hands. So zoning there is really just a tool for county to control the growth. It is not an individual property right. And I understand individual property rights are a major issue. I got that entirely. And I'm not looking to infringe individual property rights, except where it's appropriate. And that's where council comes in. Council should have the opportunity to look at what kind of uses are appropriate for a given area and restrict it accordingly. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, sir. Any other public comments on the amendments to chapter 38?
You thought she was gonna sneak by. All right, for the record, Tom Markovich. I've got a number of things for zoning and barely gonna touch on them tonight, but nonetheless. And I intended to bring this up when we were talking in chapter 32, but nonetheless, it's still something to consider because it's gonna affect chapter 38, and that is this. There is basically all the articles of chapter 32, except for land development subdivisions, and the first article, which is the basic article for the whole thing, are all about use, and they shouldn't be in 32. If it's use and there's regulations tied to it, it should be in 38. And I'm recommending that Article 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10 all be moved from 32 into zoning. And they can fit into Article 5 of 38, because Article 5 is all about uses, conditional uses. And all these articles that are in 32 are conditioned uses, period. And that's all. They shouldn't be in 32. Anyway, all right, so that's one of the main things. That's the only thing I got to say about 32, interwoven with 38. Complaints. Article 38-2.7 says that in order to make a complaint, the complainant must reside in the same planning district. And it's kind of, I don't understand exactly where that's coming from. It's depriving a whole lot of people who own property the right to have a say in some of these things. And I just don't think that was crafted right when it was crafted, and I don't think anyone has ever attempted to correct it. But nonetheless, because you go on to section zoning 38-6.3, and you start talking about notification process when there is an appeal or something else is coming up and it has to be publicly noticed, it includes all the property owners that are going to be affected. And so you don't have to be a resident then. And so there's a conflict there that needs to get fixed. And anyway, and then I come down to jurisdictional boundaries, 38-3.2, interpretation of district boundaries. some of this stuff gets really tricky because it talks about using center lines of right-of-way, which I don't have an issue with that if it's a county road. But when we start talking about state roads are state property, period. And I don't think that you have, while the roads are in the county and the county can zone the whole county, that doesn't mean you get to zone the state property that's, dedicated to the roads. And I take exception to the idea that we can always use those center line situations. I think you can with county roads to a certain extent, but there's also another place in here where I think that can even be problematic. Because in Oconee County, we have zoned a lot of the public land as public zoning. And so all of a sudden, if you've got center line of the road and it's zoned public, and then you've got a homeowner whose property line comes up to the setback line, all of a sudden now you got a conflict because, is it center of the line or is it to the property line? And it just doesn't make sense that you would create a conflict like that. So anyway, the other thing is when it comes to railroads especially, railroads are a special thing in South Carolina, and they always have. The right-of-way mechanisms for railroads goes back to the 1800s. And there's no question about it. It is exclusively for the railroad. Now, that doesn't mean that the state doesn't get permission to do certain things, just like certain sections of Highway 130. Certain sections of Highway 130 and other highways in this county are on railroad right-of-ways. My office is located adjacent to Highway 130. I have no frontage on Highway 130. I have railroad frontage. That's where it comes together. It's the railroad and it's me. And that road, Highway 130, is entirely on the railroad right-of-way. And so it starts getting in, and my property does not extend to the center line of that road. That right-of-way is 200 feet wide, and I promise you, I wish my property did go to the center line. I'd be charging them a fee to cross my property, but it doesn't. So we need to rethink this whole thing of how these boundaries are set up and where the zoning markers are. It's conflict, and it doesn't need to, because it eventually is going to, even if it hadn't created a problem yet, it will in time. That's all I got for right now. I'm sure I'll have more later, but anyway, thanks, guys.
Thanks. Yeah, I believe that's everybody this time? I think so. Mickey, do you want to lead this discussion? You want me to?
I can, or you can, either one.
I don't mind.
Okay.
I'll need
Make a
your
run
help.
at it.
All right, so most of this, just page one is just, and page two is just grammatical stuff. Section 38.2.4, page 3. Item number 4. What permits are waived and why? What are you looking for there?
Well, the whole revamp of all the ordinances was to clearly define what was required and what was not. And the vague statements, we're trying to figure out, okay, what is exactly required so that we're not perceived as giving favors to one and not another. And if we outline what's required, it simplifies that, it clears it up.
So I think in this is just talking about a zoning permit. So what is a zoning permit? No permit shall be issued by the Oconee County zoning officer, their designee, or the Board of Zoning Appeals, except in conformity with the provisions of this chapter.
I can answer that. The zoning permit, basically, it's a zoning review that we do on every permit, every building permit, all of that comes through. A zoning permit review has to be done. And so by that site plan, everything that we review, we get a site plan. Some of those are very rudimentary, hand-drawn. I mean, it's not, it depends on the project as to how extensive that's gonna be. If you've got a large commercial project, obviously, you're gonna have an engineer-drawn site plan with all of DES's requirements, et cetera, on that. But just your average person wanting to put a detached garage on their property or a carport or something like that, that's generally a hand-drawn site plan. And across the board, those are required, just so we know where something's going to make sure they're meeting setbacks or they're not, affecting their neighbor's property, those kinds of things, just to know where things are going. So, I would say maybe the degree of, the extensiveness of the site plan may vary, but that's gonna depend on the complexity of the project. Again, generally, like your commercial stuff, just, they require all of that, but DES dictates, like the land disturbance side of things with stormwater management and all of that. So they're gonna dictate how much information we have to have for that. But for our purposes, everything since I've been here, all of the building permits and such, I do a site plan review on. And again, it's just how extensive that information is, not whether we require one or not. And honestly, most of them are just hand-drawn.
So I guess what we're stating is there's really no permits that are being waived?
I have not, it's just part of the review process. We don't waive any, we review all of them. The only time, I would say none of that is waived for any type of building permit or something like that. Maybe an electrical on something existing, you don't do them for those, but anything that's being built, we do a zoning review for.
But that's not necessarily a waive on the electrical, that's a following
It's just
the
following
ordinance.
the ordinance as to what
Right.
is required, yes, sir. I haven't, since I've been here, have not waived one. And I had some backlog to catch up, so I've looked at quite a few.
So is item number 4 necessary?
Well, I think it's something we need to come back to now that we've put it out there. We can be looking for examples of where it has been waived and understand why it was waived. And if there's not any waiving of permits, then I think we need to go in and align the verbiage to what we're doing.
I'll be glad to look and see if I can see any examples of where something has been waived, and see if I can come up with any before the next meeting.
And so
Alright,
it's specifically dealing with item 4, and we're determining whether we need the verbiage that's there about unless specifically waived.
So we may have Mrs. Hester an action item to bring back to next meeting. Are there any examples of waiving permit requirements per item number 4? If not, we're going to discuss removal of that item.
Correct.
Because to me, that's one of those rules that could be used
Right.
to someone's advantage and not somebody else's. And that's what we're looking to get rid of.
I think it alleviates the burden off of the person in my chair for having to make that decision. It's just.
That too. Right.
Which is.
Some want that decision so they can,
I think it's beneficial to have it clear, either it is yes or it is no, and some things you need a little room.
that's
but-
where we're trying to head with these.
Yeah, I think that's a good, but I'll look for examples.
Thank you. All right, the next item is under 3824, item number 5, item I, sub-item I. What other information is needed? It says, any other information deemed necessary by staff for the enforcement of the provisions of this chapter regarding the approved site plan. So, is that something that, after looking at this, anybody thought of any additional information, or Teresa?
Other information could cover topography, stormwater, drainage, procedures, traffic details, utility layouts, stuff like that.
Is that not called out in the permitting process for the type of subdivision?
This is
No, it's
in the initial early on, like, so you're, it depends, but if it's not a full-on subdivision, say it's just a commercial site that you're developing, these questions, the site plan that you're doing there, it may not be a subdivision you're dealing with, it may just be a commercial development, and you need all of that information, like you're referring to, stormwater management, all of those kind of things come into play. And, or maybe it's something near the lake and you need an arborist to check the trees. I've gotten 2 arborist reports in the last week. So it may be information like that, because every site is not exactly the same, so we're not gonna be able to cover everything that may come up. It's rare that you have to have a lot of exceptions, but it just, we have such a varied topography in the county, it's hard to say what you may or may not need.
So you mentioned the arborist checking the trees. Is that not within the lake overlay?
But it wouldn't be in a site plan, that's only comes in if they're taking down, like, you're talking about like if they're wanting to remove and.
Remove or, yes.
There is a section in there about that, yes. Because we have like mitigation requirements if they do.
But this is about the site plan, this is about this is what we want to do with our property. As opposed to, and then you're just making sure then that they follow those rules.
Well, that we have all of the necessary information to make sure that what they're trying to do works within the overall plan of the ordinance.
So if somebody brings you a site plan that's got items Alpha through hotel covered, what other items might you ask for?
I would say that would only come up if it was a site-specific, say you're dealing with, a data center or a specific type of a commercial project that has some unusual factors to it. Maybe it has, excessive water usage or excessive power usage or those types of things that we need further reports for. Maybe we need a traffic study to make sure that the driveway that they're wanting to put in will accommodate what they're trying to do. That's where that stuff would come in, because they're not putting in a new roadway, but it may change the design of their driveway because of the amount of traffic that's coming out onto the road. So a site plan, it may be that we have to ask for that additional information. Again, it's not something that is common, it just depends on the site, and I would say a lot of that's gonna be more of like your commercial building projects, things like that. Those are gonna be more site-specific based on the business and what information you may need, to
Almost.
change greatly.
It's almost like item I is about as good as you're gonna get it.
Yeah, the issue I'm struggling with is forest stormwater. We really don't, that's out of our wheelhouse, that's state. If they're going onto a state road, that's state. If they're going on a county road, we have a process for determining if an upgrade is needed. Actually, it's a very lengthy process going on a county road, and that's one reason why most developments decide not to go onto a county road. I would like to postpone this until we go through the document and come back to it and make sure that, is this too vague, or is there things that we're doing now that we actually need to implement in other documents to call out those things so that they're not, I know we keep talking about commercial properties. Is there things on the commercial property side of zoning that we need to call out that's not being called out, and that therefore would alleviate the vagueness of item I? So make a motion to postpone this until we've dug in deeper through 38.
Do we want to postpone it, or do we want to ask the director to, before our next meeting, if there's an item that does come up continuously that is not in 5, that we might need to add to 5, because it's something that you're using I to deal with, but in fact, we could use a sentence there to deal with, because this happens every time, and you're covering it under 5, then to bring that to us.
I hear what you're saying, I just don't want to overburden you, and I think as we go through 38, there's going to be a learning curve for all of us, and I think that will help expose some of these, I'm sorry about that.
Some of the shortcomings of the
Right.
of the document.
And we may find that those things that you're talking about actually needs to go in a different part of the document. But I'm fine either way.
Okay, I don't think we need a motion to postpone, we'll just move forward to the
Okay.
next item. while we're headed that way, why don't we look at page 4 of 74, section 38.2.7 complaints. That was Tom Markovich's comment, one of his comments, and discuss what we want to do with that paragraph.
Say that number again.
38-2.7 complaints. We're gonna try to discuss the folks that were here's comments. I think it's common courtesy to do that since they were courteous enough to show up and give us comments.
Absolutely.
All complaints of violations shall be submitted in writing on a form provided this on. I think Tom's complaint was complainants must reside within the same planning district in which the potential violation lies. Yet, if they own property in that planning district and they're not living in there, they can still, in this other section over here, complain, right? That section was 38.6.
Or they get notified if zoning changes.
38.6.3 public notification process, yeah. So does anybody know what the purpose of not allowing complainants outside the planning district?
Well, I honestly think the purpose was.
Special interests?
Yes, to make sure that special interest groups don't go, becoming busybodies throughout the community and really creating chaos, but it does create a problem because the verbiage is.
What if we said complainants must reside or own property within the same planning district?
I think the planning district's what the problem is, because what if you're on the property on the other side of that planning district line? And, you got a neighbor I think the verbiage needs to be addressed so, it deals with something similar to the notification. Whereas if it's contiguous properties, also they have a right to bring about a complaint. And I think all complaints are public knowledge anyway.
What takes place with the complaint that says that it must be acted upon within 10 days? I mean, and the reason I ask is because what if it's a commercial zoning district and that commercial entity brings in people from all over the county, and people from anywhere in the county are finding some conflict, whether that's getting in and out or getting somewhere along there, there's a complaint of a violation that there are dumpsters right in the middle of the access point or whatever it might be, it's still a commercial entity coming in. This isn't all about just neighborhood stuff. My question is, why can't anybody complain about anything? If it's a complaint, yep, that looks good, thanks, and it goes over here, what's the 10-day involvement? Is it a big, long process for staff? Or is it yep, we saw the complaint, we registered it, thank you very much. If we get another one, we'll bring it somewhere else.
Generally, a complaint is filed in writing, then enforcement follows up on that complaint. So far since I've been here, he's gone out on every complaint we've got and establishes, is this valid or not? Is somebody actually breaking a rule or not? Are they, and because first you've got to establish, are they even doing anything wrong? Sometimes it's somebody thinking that they are, but they're, that kind of stuff. So every complaint we've received, we have not verified that they're in the same planning district. Since I've been here, that has not been enforced, and to my knowledge, it was not being enforced that you have to be in the same planning district. It is, if a complaint's received by a citizen, or they have put in a complaint, then code enforcement acts on that. And within the 10-day time frame is to say that you made a complaint to that office, to my office today, we have 10 days to act on that complaint. So we have to go out and evaluate, and all that information is in the system to say what was found, if there was a valid issue there, and then how he contacted the person and what's gonna be done. So that's where that 10 days comes in, is our burden to respond to that complaint in 10 days.
So let me follow up with that, and I apologize for taking so much time. You said contacted someone, and I'm assuming that they can go out and observe with their eyes. There might be a complaint here that's legit, or in fact, they're not violating anything from what we're seeing. Are they able to stop at that point and simply come back and log in? We saw nothing wrong.
Yes, sir.
And then does that stay logged somewhere so that if a month down the road, somebody else gives a similar complaint about that property or that situation, you go, oh yeah, this is the 14th one we've had on that. And now maybe there is something we need to check out.
Yes,
It
sir.
only happens on Tuesday at midnight or whatever.
Right. It is logged in the system. I will say that is one thing that, we are looking to change, is how that's logged, so it'll all be in the same citizen serve program that we do everything else in, so it's all uniform. But it is logged and monitored as far as for duplicates. Are we seeing the same issue at the same property, or are they doing the same thing over again? Did they, a pile up of trash in the front yard, and they took care of the problem, and then 2 weeks later, it's all thrown back over there again, and, you know, you're going back out on the same thing. So it is monitored to be able to know if it's a repeat offender, or if you're getting a complaint on the same property. We've had one this week that 3 people have complained about, but at this juncture, there's nothing that, for the county's ordinance, that they have, that there's been a problem, but there is on DES's side, so they're taking care of it, and we've been able to document that that's where the issue lies, and that is who is handling the problem. So the 10 days comes in there, that we have to respond in some fashion within 10 days, but up to this point, to my knowledge, they have never held to where that, the complainant, where they live in relation to who they're complaining about.
Are we overburdening the staff if we say that a complaint can be given or taken from anywhere to anywhere within the county? Is that an overburden on the staff at this point in time as you see it?
As of today, I would say no, just based on what we've got. Now, could it be in the future? Perhaps, yes. You know, as the county continues to grow, I could see the need for an increase in that area, but right now, we are complaint-based, so problems are handled when they're complained about. So, staff is able to maintain at this point.
So from a standpoint up here, I could see that somebody didn't put up a silt fence on their construction and red clay is running down into the lake. That's gonna be complaint driven probably from a neighborhood. Somebody dumps dirt out onto Highway 123 while they're building their commercial building and it's sitting out there, anybody should be able to complain about something like that.
Well, I think I don't know that would be necessarily a code enforcement complaint. If they're dumping dirt on the highway, that's,
State.
that'd be a,
Well, and I'm using 123 because it's a
Yeah.
busy road, but it could be any particular road if they're in violation. And my question is I don't see a problem with actually opening this up.
The
Because
only
it solves your
problem I
problem
see-
of somebody being in a different district.
Yeah.
It's my neighbor, but they're in a different district, so I can't complain.
so, well, it's not the point you can't complain. What do you do with the ones that are a group of individuals, as we have experienced in the past, especially when zoning first took place in this county, where a group of individuals were riding around and constantly using this as a means to where the property owners somewhat felt that he was being harassed.
And I guess that would come down to staff. Are they having to knock on the door, or are they simply putting a visual, or are they looking at the computer and go, man, this group has complained 14 times about nothing?
A lot of times you don't know it's the group until you look who they're affiliated with. So how do you ensure that this is not a mechanism to harass a property owner that is zoned differently than the
I
neighbor
think
properties?
that is the burden of a well-trained code enforcement officer to know, and that is why that it's important for them to, somebody just not walk in and do the job. They need to know and be trained on how to do that and how to evaluate it. And so far, that's what he's done. We had one, again, the third person called about it, and he said, okay, this is the same guy, it's all the same issue. And so just because 3 people called doesn't mean we went out 3 times, because these were within 3 days' time. We didn't go out 3 times. He went out, evaluated the situation, turned it over to DES for them to handle.
So you're looking at the scope of the issue and you're evaluating, well, you know, this, we've already had a call about this, it's not an issue. So how do you, are you replying back to the complainant?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He notifies the complainant that there is nothing that is against, no ordinance has been broken at this point. They're not in violation of
Okay.
any codes at this point. And if they are, then he addresses that with them. And, I believe, based on what I've seen, he really tries to work with the property owner that is being complained about. And because sometimes you may have an elderly couple that it's very difficult to remove trash. So that takes a little bit of time, and you have to be a little bit more flexible with somebody in those kinds of situations. So you may get 12 complaints while that person is working through that mitigation plan. So that's up to code enforcement to evaluate that each time. He's not gonna harass that person anymore just because 13 more people complained about it if they're still working through that mitigation plan. Again, I think that falls on code enforcement to properly manage those complaints as they come in.
Do we have a motion?
I got one question. Just a little bit different issue on the same ordinance. Is that 10 calendar days or 10 working days?
I don't know that we have clarified that. I have not, and maybe we should. Everything that has come in since I've been here, if he came in today, he goes out tomorrow. Unless somebody just happens to not be, like, he's out of the office or something. He responds the next day. I had one that he was in the area and he responded the same day. So I would say clarifying that probably would be a positive, to say either 10 business days or 10 calendar days, especially if volume increases, where that may take a bit of time.
And that's what I was thinking. You mentioned volume increasing over time.
And it could, so I think clarifying that would be a good thing.
So the least conservative thing with respect to the resources you guys have and the person being complained against would be working day, or calendar days. Most conservative would be working days.
Yeah.
Either one is acceptable. I think just having a clarification of what the expectation is, so that if you've got a group complaining, then we know we've got 10 days, be it calendar or working days, to respond to that complainant.
I'll make a motion, Mickey, that when we go through this document, maybe chapter 32 and 26 as well, that we define days as either working or calendar.
I agree. And
I would make a motion that we use working days.
I would agree with that.
So is that a second?
I will second that motion.
And do we call it working days or business days?
Business days,
Business days, yeah.
or days of operation, actually. Is because, well, I guess business days would take care of that. I was thinking about all the holidays and everything
Yeah,
you're doing.
business days.
Yep.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor, and we are discussing. Any other discussion on that? All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Yes.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to remove complainants must reside within the same planning district in which the potential violation lies.
I'll second that motion.
And we're just striking that one sentence?
Yes, sir.
Discussion? Well, we've already discussed it pretty much, haven't we? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's all, everyone. Somebody's gonna fuss at me for clicking this pen. I'm gonna take that one.
Can I ask, y'all haven't addressed, but it is an issue that has come up in the office, and I don't know that it's something that y'all would have noticed. 38 2.4, number 6. Says no permanent utility connection shall be authorized and no certificate of occupancy will be issued until the zoning official certifies that a required site plan is complete and that an approved as-built plan is on file. That has been, not uniformly enforced, as in, making someone get an as-built survey after their house is built. And I would, as staff, I would like clarification, is that the intent of the commission that all new builds, whatever you're building, would have an approved as-built survey on file? As you know, surveys are expensive, and I'm trying to clarify so we know that, because it wasn't uniformly enforced, I wanna clarify how y'all want moving forward. And this may be something you wanna talk about, but it's just an issue that has come up very quickly since I've been here, and I would like for y'all to.
I would very much say we do not want surveys for as-bills. I mean, you could have 50 acres and just put a shed with electricity on it, and now you've got to survey a $15,000 50-acre survey.
I would just, I wanna know how to enforce.
How would we change that if we're not necessarily requiring that?
Well, we're making the required site plan is complete. That's where that statement of requiring a site plan on every zoning permit, even if it's a hand-drawn site plan, that's part of making sure that site plan is complete, meaning they've done what they said they were gonna do as per that site plan. So they've built it where they said it was gonna.
So as long as it's got the site plan, it,
Because the site plan would be complete if they had built where they said they were going to, and because then we would know that everything else is in and done.
zoning official certifies the required site. So this isn't about a survey then?
That part, an approved as-built plan on file is.
Okay.
That part has been interpreted as having to give us not always, it's not been uniformly enforced. Certain areas, because I asked about that when I read it, and I went back and been told, like, we had a gentleman that was told he had to do an as-built for a porch addition on the back of his house. He was not getting closer to any setbacks, he was literally just kind of evening out the back of the house, but he was told he had to provide an as-built survey after the fact. Well, this gentleman, it was cost prohibitive, he was not gonna be able to close out a permit because he could not afford to get an as-built survey.
Yeah.
And then.
So a remodel requires, the way you read this, a remodel would require it? If
you're
it
adding to the
increases
parameter.
surface area?
If you're, yes, under the zoning permit, either we would need to clarify that one way or another. And at this point, I'm just looking for y'all, I would like for y'all to review that and decide which way you would prefer. I just wanted to bring it to your attention while it's open.
I'll say right now, before we forget about it, that as-built survey stuff shouldn't be there.
So
That's a
removes-
real burdensome challenge for people.
Yes.
I mean, again, it could be a shed that you've put on there if you brought electricity to that.
I'll make a motion to let Mr. Markovich, address the council.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll be real quick. It's kind of interesting because I've been building here for 45 years, and this is the first time I've heard of needing an as-built for, okay? All Duke Power has ever asked for and all we ever have had to give them is a CO, period, which is issued by the building department, has nothing to do with zoning or where the house is sited or anything else. CO has always been what we needed. I don't know why that's in there, where it came from. That's all I got. Thank you.
That was thank you for that. That was the point that.
When something's built, it's out of the zoning, it's already past the zoning stage.
Technically, yes, but you have to, the whole idea is to make sure it's built where it's supposed to be.
Well, that's what the inspectors, that's their job, correct?
Correct, but an inspector is not a surveyor, so if you're building within 5 feet of, if you're building out to your setback, that builder's not a surveyor. If they didn't put that where it's supposed to be, it could be across a line, easily. You could be well within a setback. It is not unheard of. I've got one on my desk right now that we've got to figure out what to do with. Somebody just got a little happy when they put it on the ground and put it where they wanted to instead of where they were supposed to. So,
And how was
That-
that, do you know how that was identified?
it has been sold since then. The person just kind of abandoned the project. It's been sold. The new property owner got a new survey done.
There you go.
And it showed basically they had already done footings, plumbing under slab, and were prepped for the slab, and it's in the wrong location. So that's where that comes into play.
Would it be something that if we said that if you're within X number of feet of your setback line, dead and as-built showing?
I think this is something we need to come back with and do some further research on.
Yeah,
A
definitely.
good thing would be an action item for a specific person to come up with a specific thing. Does anybody have a good idea of what that would be?
I know who would be, Mike would be a good person to come up with that.
Wait, does Mike
Johnson.
get a say in this at all?
Yeah, you're voluntold.
That was it.
Well, I'm told.
Mr. Johnson, are you willing to take an action item to,
I will
Reword
try
item
to
number
come up
6.
with proper wording for number 6.
I don't know that that needs to be a motion, but
No, I
Mr. Chair.
can manage it.
Point of privilege, can we take a 5-minute recess?
motion for a 5-minute recess, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Call this planning commission meeting back to order. We were discussing chapter 38. And I think now we are on page 5 of 74. Penalties, section 38-2.9. If you had a sentence here that says we need to match this verbiage with what is in chapters 26 and 32, so. I don't have 26 or 32 in front of me, so do you have some comments on that, Mickey? Any ideas?
No,
What
it's,
you want?
it's basically that we need to, make sure that the verbiage that we had implemented in, I think, 32 or 20, I think it was 26, that it's the same verbiage when it comes to penalties in 38. I will dig that up.
Understand, you're gonna take an action item.
Is that in our adjusted, didn't we make an adjustment to that?
I thought we had, but it wasn't, because we haven't got 26 or 32 proved, it did not flow through.
I'm just gonna say that you have an action item to find in chapter 26 and bring back to the group next meeting.
Okay.
All right. Page 6 of 74. We'll discuss that one later. Page 7 of 74, section 38, 4.2, non-conforming structures. Item number 1, need to define the parameters of what counts as altering and changing. Mickey, you want to talk about what you're looking for there?
Well, I think if you go down to the bottom, it kind of, really defines what we need to do, because it states that there's a strict construction when it comes to altering, expanding, and changing. Well, if that's the case, then what does those words mean in this document? Because there's no definition. Altering to one person is different to another.
So
Changing.
is really what you're looking for an addition of altering, expanding, changing?
We must
Into
define.
definitions?
We must define those in the definition if we're gonna use those under it says on, if you go down to item 5, at the very end, shall be strictly construed. So we either take out strictly construed or we define them.
Well, I mean, I think we need to define them.
I mean, is altering putting new handrails on a porch?
Well, let's do the easiest one, expanding. So that would be increasing the surface area footprint on the plat?
Well, I don't have a problem with
the structure?
expanding. It's altering and changing.
Okay, well, I was just doing the easy one first.
Yeah, it's changing that's creating the issue and altering.
I think that one is footprint, right? Expanding is
Yeah,
footprint.
right.
So
And you're right, we probably need to go through and write definitions for all of those. But I just knew that alter and changing was used up here in item 1, and then again, it's used down here in item 5.
Along with that, in item 5, it says in the neighborhood, but zoning is everything, not just residential homes in a neighborhood. Am I missing something here? Usage in the neighborhood, but zoning is also commercial structures and everything else in commercial zoned areas.
Correct.
I think altering and changing are the same. I don't think there's any difference between those two words. Now, if you go, okay, altering and changing, is that, changing the structure
I think it's
such
changing
that?
use. I think it's altering is any physical modification, and change is changing use.
Okay, but is altering, where does that end? I mean, if a property owner wants to change the shutters on his house, is that altering? And that's the,
Can I read the definition?
yes, sir.
Means changing, modifying, or making different in some way, but not completely replacing.
That's very vague. And it used the word changing in its definition.
What
I
makes
didn't
it,
make up the definition, sorry.
what aspects could make it non-conforming though? Those are the aspects that you're worried about altering or changing, in my
Right,
opinion.
and that's the ones we need to define. What will make it non-conforming? And that's the reason.
How do you define that stuff? There's a multitude.
Okay, so we don't have that in place right now, but say an area that has chosen to, say we want all the, like Hilton Head, that says we want all the buildings to look the same. Not this, a building is non-conforming because it's 2 feet over the setback line that it was supposed to be, but all of a sudden, this building now turns itself into a glass mirror building. That doesn't conform to the other regulations that are there, but the issue is his 2 foot over the property line that was the non-conforming issue. So now he's changed it to a mirror building, which he probably is in violation of. But I'm using this as kind of an absurdity, because that example does fall in somewhere
Well-
into real life.
I'll give you a good, a specific example. If you go look at the zoning use matrix. So you've got a structure on a piece of property and it's under a specific zoning requirement. And you go down that column and it says it's gotta be this, 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 and this. Or if these are allowed and these are not. If you alter it to be something that is not allowed in that zoning column, to me, that's an alteration. That's something you
It's a
gotta
type
consider.
alteration.
It's a non-conformance.
Or
So it was approved originally under a non-conformance, but now the question is it still approved even though they've made this dramatic change?
I think what Dave was, or what Mr. Nix was alluding to was, it was compliant with the zoning class it was in, but then altered to be non-conforming and not compliant.
Right, I mean, go look at the zoning use matrix, and let's take, for example, I don't know, what's the most restrictive one?
So the big thing about this particular section is it's saying there is a non-conforming structure already, which means that if it was built today, it would no longer be allowed, but it's allowed because it was, we'll call it grandfathered in, for lack of a better word. But now they changed something to that structure.
Well,
They put a new facade on it, or they paint it blue, and it was supposed to, and it was, the non-conforming is the fact that that building is over the property line. It's not that it was blue or green, but now there's another issue.
So the question is, so what you're talking about is you're altering it to be in an additional violation to the
Right.
zoning
The
class it's in.
non-conforming, it's approved over 2 feet over the property line, that was grandfathered in, it's okay. And the question becomes is what do they get to do? How much do they get to change that structure and still be okay about the fact that they're 2 feet over the property line?
And I think, and that's what I was looking for,
Well,
was
you
to
can't
clarify.
you can't build a chicken house in a mixed-use development.
So I think what you just stated is a very good example, is you are altering or changing, or what's the other one they used? Well, expanding, we know, altering or changing to the point that it's also in violation of the zoning class it's in. But we need to come up with the,
Well, does it screw up so take a 1930s home outside of Walhalla over here somewhere that's in complete shambles, that's been abandoned, and somebody has bought it to fix it up. And there are several things that no longer conform. You couldn't build that house that way anymore, so it's a non-conforming structure that's there. Can somebody renovate that structure, or do they screw themselves when they do? It becomes what this is kind of talking about.
You ought to be able to renovate something that's non-conforming into conformance, but not the opposite.
Right.
and there's a section in here about doing that. About going from renovating a non-conforming structure. I think that's, well, it's under rebuilding.
So does anybody have any, I mean, Teresa hit on this, any idea why we would differentiate between altering and changing? Or are they both the same? I don't know.
If you alter something, you change it, right?
Well,
No, I think
I don't know
changing
why the
is
difference
going
in
like from
verbiage.
residential to commercial. You're changing the use of your structure. I think altering is the physical modification of the structure.
I would think if you want to clarify that, then you could add use, changing use. Otherwise, you're right, those two words are interchangeable.
So do you mean you're changing from one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use?
I have no idea what they meant.
Well, it doesn't have to be
Any
non,
proposed change in use?
Honesty is the best policy.
Non-conforming.
That's why we need to define it and make sure it fits, because if it's gonna be strictly construed, then we need to make sure that they can,
Proposed use does not.
understand what it is. Mr. Chairman, can we bring Mr. Markovich up here? I make a motion.
Make a motion,
Yeah.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
I would think that something like altering the use would be going from a primary, single-family residence, and all of a sudden it becomes a vacation house, a BBRO. You know, did you change the use? Now you're renting this thing out. You haven't totally changed it, but you've altered that use, and so and I would think that almost everything that is in the zoning ordinance is about not so much the physical changes, except for a case where it might actually be making something larger. But it's about use and how that affects the use, period. And then in some cases where you got setbacks and all that sort of thing. But, I mean, just like changing colors and that kind of thing is not gonna have, because it was, you know, I mean, that's not in the zoning mechanism. It may be a homeowners association issue, but it's not a zoning issue.
Or historical districts.
Historical district would be a whole different thing
Right.
into itself, exactly, yeah. Anyway, that's all I got,
Yep.
thank you.
So that's a very good input, so we need to put altering the use.
altering is the physical modification, changes the use.
Or change
You
the
can
use.
alter the use too, can't you? I mean,
I think it would simplify it for everyone if we was to define those definitions within this document.
I think that's a good question for the attorney.
Right.
So we want to give the attorney an action item while he's not here
I teach my.
to define altering, expanding, and changing
Within this particular deal,
context of non-conforming structures.
right,
Correct.
as it relates here. And let me finish that with also understanding that not everything is about neighborhoods. And also understanding that this needs to survive, this sentence needs to survive if 10 years down the road, we do start changing some zoning things to everything on this street has to be orange. This
Implement
needs
landscape.
to survive that, so.
Mr. Chairman.
Quick question, Dave.
Yeah.
Just clarification on 38421. And I know and the reason I'm asking this question is because the discussions that we've been having are talking about changing the structure, but the way this reads to me, and I may need clarification, is the altering, expanding, changing, rebuilding, or resuming of a nonconformity. So we're talking about the alteration, expanding, changing, rebuilding of the nonconformity.
Structure.
It doesn't say structure.
doesn't say structure.
And 38-4.2, non-conforming structures.
So my question is.
Non-conforming shall be subject to review. It doesn't say structures.
But it does, that's the heading of this paragraph, is everything falls within a structure.
It does, but so that's where I'm asking for clarification. Maybe it's just me. But are we talking about the alteration of the nonconformity or of the structure itself? Any alteration to the structure?
I read that as the nonconformity is within the structure, because the header is in the event an alteration is proposed for any nonconforming structure. The structure has a nonconformity.
But I think what he's alluding to is there's things within the non-conforming structure that conforms with the zone it's in. And if you modify those, is that in part of this?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Using Mr. Markovich's example, you had a single-family home, now it's turned into an attorney's office, and they need a handicap ramp. It was non-conforming before, now you've made some alterations to it.
But are you changing the issue that made it a non-conforming structure?
Why was it non-conforming to begin with?
I don't know, maybe, again, I
It's
keep going back to the
hypothetical.
over the setback line or something of that
That's
nature.
right.
So I think if you read number one literally, it's addressing the nonconformity. Are you changing, altering, expanding the nonconformity?
And I would say if it was a house and it was 2 feet over, the nonconformity is the house. And now you've changed it from single-family
But if you
to,
want to take that's out a addressed wall, in are you? section 3.
what's that?
That's addressed in section 3 on expansion. Or if you want to add a handicap ramp. I mean, it has nothing
Right,
to do
you
with the
couldn't continue moving over into the you couldn't continue moving over into the setback that you're over. You would have to build the handicap ramp somewhere else.
Somewhere
On
else.
the property.
Exactly.
Is addressed in 3, so.
Does the staff have any thoughts on that? Item number one? Or insight?
Number 3 is an easy one with setbacks. You allow them to go, if they are built up to 1 foot from the property line, it has been established that we allow that at some point. So you allow them to maintain that line. They can't get any closer to the property line than they already are, is the way that I read that.
Right.
But you can go up to that. So it allows them still use of their property in that way. I do think there needs to be, like, that non-conforming use falls under this non-conforming structure as well, because, and that's where I agree that the changing use is an important thing here, because a good example would be it was a house, now it's an attorney's office, and that business, maybe when that business was put in there, there was nothing to prohibit having an attorney's office in that district for business use. Now there is, maybe the zoning changed, and now that's a non-conforming use. Now, are we gonna go boot them out of their office? No, we're not. They're just a non-conforming use. But say they needed to come in and build that handicap ramp for their office, I feel like that's where we need to figure out, is it a percentage that you'll allow them to continue doing anything? We need to define that somehow. How far do we allow them to go?
That's good. That helped me a lot along with what Teresa said a while ago. I think changing ought to be reworded as change in use, change dash in dash use. And then we define that.
I think
On
we
number
need
4,
to.
did you read that section?
The answer is no, I didn't, but I'm reading it now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that kind of spells it out a little.
Kinda.
Where are we? 4.
But I still think changing it should be change dash in dash use, change in use.
Yeah.
Cause that's really, that differentiates what that is relative to altering,
Agreed.
to me.
Well, and I would like to go back because
Altering
Mr. Haney's original intent about this was the words "shall be strictly construed" as being a legal of legal interest there. I think we should go back to the attorney and let him make sure that this document that this section is being structured correctly. Because I do think that falls under an attorney getting that right.
So let's move back up, Mr. Chairman, to item 4B.
Who and how is this determined?
Yes, far as the screening, fencing, and other means necessary to deal with excessive light, noise, dust, and negative impacts.
Where are you? What page?
Section 3842, item number 4,
4 Bravo.
still on page 7.
They're there, okay.
We may not get off page 7 before this meeting ends.
So this is another one of those things that's open for interpretation, depending upon who is viewing it and
Didn't they have this problem down there in Fairplay? With that gas station, didn't they have to put up certain fencing and do certain things? Didn't they already have rules in place for what had to go up to block the lighting, block the sound, blah, blah, blah?
portions of fair play falls within Article.
No, I'm saying specifically, you said who determines it and how is it determined?
Right.
Somewhere it's been determined.
Because they went underneath the, I forgot what it's called, Appendix A, applies to certain areas in fair play. I'm not sure if that's the one it applies to. And in that, that's a landscape ordinance or a landscape zoning portion that they put in Appendix A. And it deals with those type of issues through buffering.
Right.
So, yes, but this zoning portion is written for the entire county. It's not under Appendix A. Somewhere in here.
Appendix A is only for that part of the county, it's not for the whole county?
Correct. And it's written somewhere in it. I was not prepared for that question, but,
We'll wait. Trying to help you out here.
I don't see where it says it's strictly for that one area.
I don't either.
I read it somewhere.
It seems like it says building.
Is it in the body of the chapter 38 that it says it, where it references Appendix A, or is it inside Appendix A?
I think it's in the,
So, why are we bogged down on this? What's the point of this?
Yeah, what do we-
The question is who determines it, and what I'm saying, it's already determined. It's in Appendix A.
Ah.
And he says Appendix A is only for fair play, and I know it's for everything.
You would think that would be in the very beginning, except it was.
Correct.
Limited to.
Correct.
Section 38-9.5, here in Article 3,
38.
38-9.5.
What
Number
page?
3. It's page 22 of 74.
Yep.
It says that appendix A shall only apply to those zoning districts or overlay districts specifically identified in Article 10 zoning district and Article 11 overlay district as being subject to appendix A.
Somewhere in there.
Man, Mr. Haney, look at you.
I've read it enough. So with that, this is the problem we run into a lot throughout these different ordinances. Who defines what? How is it determined? What's the measurable means we use in,
Excessive light, noise,
right?
decibels.
Is it the amount of complaints you get, or is it the actual physical uptick in these items? What's the determined factor?
Dust specifically, I mean, decibels are measurable, but dust, I mean, gosh, the wind blew that day more so than
Exactly.
another day.
So how is this measured?
So the question is Ms. Hirsch, as you can tell, we're really trying to nail down stuff so that the person sitting in that chair isn't determining something different from the next person sitting in that chair or the last person sitting in that chair.
And not only that, it's so that the person that's developing the property
Knows if they're within the rights or not.
and has a foot to stand on and saying, listen, I followed your guidelines, and therefore, why am I having to invest this additional amounts of funds in to affect my ROI? Because you're saying that it's too dusty, or
Yep.
there's too much
Or
noise.
other negative impacts.
Yeah, or other negative impacts.
Doesn't it give, it's talking about as a special exception, that B falls under in, number 4, it talks about that it can be approved as a special exception, provided those things. Well, doesn't this special exception have to be approved? That's not approved by the planning director. Because it
Yeah.
talks again about a special exception down here that the, BZA has to approve. So, because it talks about in number 5, any proposed change in use may be permitted as a special exception by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So would the special exception referred to in number 4 not fall under the BZA?
I think that's a great point,
Then they would have,
because BZA can define what parameters something takes
it
place.
would give another level of scrutiny besides.
You can do
just
this
the
as
rest.
long as you asphalt the parking lot, or whatever. So the BZA has that level of authority, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think we're okay there, because it's not a staff person, it is a board that is making that evaluation. And they're making an evaluation based on a special exception, and these are the parameters that we're gonna give you that special exception.
So when we say as a special exception, is it implicit that it's by the Board of Zoning, provided by the Board of Zoning Appeals, or do we need to put that in there?
It's specified in number 5, so maybe it needs to be specified in number 4.
I think so too.
What about if we took out number 1, because number 2, 3, 4, and 5 basically covers individually, just needs some verbiage change.
Well, 1 is your overarching statement that says, these are the general kind of activities, non-conforming activities that are addressed by the rest of these statements in this section. I don't know that you need to take it out. I think it's a summary statement.
Well, then number 2, 3, 4, and 5 should be A, B, C.
Or maybe you should say, maybe what we could do is, number 1 could be rolled into the header paragraph.
Into the header
In the
paragraph.
event an alteration is proposed for any non-conforming structure, and get rid of the following standards and just say the altering, expanding, changing use, rebuilding, or resuming of the non-conformity shall be subject to review and permitting under provisions established in this chapter.
Yeah, I like that.
Just roll it into the header paragraph.
So you're making a motion that you scratch number 1, bring that sentence up into the header paragraph.
Yeah, I'll make that a motion.
I'll second that. Was that understood, Ms. Hurst, as to what
Get
we're
rid of the
asking for
following
there?
standards shall apply.
And then all those other numbers would change. So we have a first and a second on that.
Discussion? Opposition? Concerns? All in favor?
Aye. The second part of this is going back down to number 4. We had noted in number 5 that the words zoning, Board of Zoning Appeals is in that sentence specifically. Do we also need to add that to 4 since that's who is giving the special exception?
Is that a motion?
I'm asking if you all feel like, I'm going to say, yeah, that's a motion. I make a motion that we add that appropriate wording, that Board of Zoning Appeals, into item number 4, since that's who's giving the special exception.
I'll second that motion. Discussion?
So you're just gonna put it
Where are you gonna put it?
as special exception?
We're going to let the
as-
attorney tell us where it
I don't-
goes.
As special exception
Just like
provided
it's in
by
there, yeah, by the BZA.
the BZA.
Special exception by the
Take out the
BZA.
semicolon and just put by.
We're gonna make it the same in 4 as it is in 5.
Yeah, 5, yep,
Special exception by
By
the
the
Board of
BZA.
Zoning Appeals.
yep. Do we have a first and a second on that?
We
Who was the
do,
second?
do we have any other discussion?
Hold on, who was the second?
I made the motion, and Mr. Nix made the second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
That verbiage changed. Unanimous.
So the only thing now is the attorney working on that other section.
Right, we have an action item to the attorney to define altering, expanding, and changing use.
Also in that wording about the strictly construed, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, is all that even appropriate? And the attorney's going to tell us how that really should be cleaned up.
it's really just defining the scope of what we already know we got to do. Just putting it in words. Mickey, did you want to discuss the strict construction, or have we already?
We went through that. The
Went out? Okay.
attorney will take care of that.
Time for a couple more items in.
So the next item is continuing on underneath rebuilding. It had all structure, and really, it should be the affected portion of the structure should be rebuilt or otherwise modified. A good example of that, you're talking about a home that was built in the, 100 years ago, and you're wanting to add an addition onto it.
Well, for change in use, it might be the whole structure.
If it is a change in use. But this is about rebuilding,
Okay.
restoration
Gotcha.
of a non-conforming building structure which was damaged, partially destroyed by fire, flood, and
That could be used as a building that was built that predates the current building code as well. Because that's in here. And you wouldn't want somebody to have to come in and your kitchen burned, you wouldn't want them to have to rebuild all their bathrooms because they don't meet just because so it only, what you're saying is only affects the part that they're having to fix or repair or rebuild.
at that time, yes.
I don't think anybody's got any issues with that wording, but we'll come back through. We're trying to answer the questions, so I don't think.
Oh, yes.
But if you,
So we'll
Well, on the next page, you put the portion of the structure to be rebuilt,
Yes,
out of the words.
We'll vote on that next time.
yep. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I got off track.
It's all right. That's what I'm here for.
Now we're
All
at
right,
conditional
section-
uses. Article
Yeah,
5.
section 38.5, conditional uses, 38.50. Mickey's got here, what other information is needed and why? The standards listed in this section shall be applied to the designated zoning districts. This zoning official may require site plans, technical specifications, and/or any other reasonable documentation necessary to verify compliance.
$38.50.
I can give a couple of examples of things that might be needed.
Okay.
A photometric study, if it's in a district that has to adhere to Appendix B, there's lighting requirements there. You would need a photometric study to know if they're meeting the lighting requirement, to know whether it affects their neighbors, all that stuff. So you might look at that. There's landscape requirements in that section, so you would need a landscape plan.
But should that be called out?
Again, should it? Probably, if it applies. I do think that there's no way you're gonna catch every
Yeah.
possible circumstance, because we don't know every business or every instance that may come up between now and then. So you have to leave a little room, or either you have to leave some way to get the necessary information. Maybe that's having to come back before the commission, I don't know, but there needs to be some avenue.
Yeah, our concern is reasonable, any other reasonable documentation.
Yes.
Let me ask it this way from staff. Once you make that determination, so I go buy a building, looking at this ordinance, going, okay, I think I know what I want to do. But before I buy that, I'm going to come to you and say, can I do these things? You'll outline what you're going to need from me. Does that ever change? Because now I've gone and bought the building, now I come back to you and say, I'm ready to rock and roll, here's my list, I've done that. Do you add stuff at that point? Because now I could be hurt.
I don't think so. I think that's where you have to determine, you have to give the information, because this falls under conditional use.
And that's their concern right there, is that now I've made an investment and now you've made a change. But as long as I can come to, as a public can come to you and say, I'm thinking about doing this, what are you going to require? As long as you tell me up front what you're going to require, I don't see a problem with that.
But if you can be told up front what is required, why can we not put it in writing?
Because I think every
Because
situation is going to be
They don't
different.
know all the situations.
A conditional use will allow so many variables. A conditional use is not cut and dry every time.
Yeah, I
That's why a
understand that,
conditional
but
use is required.
there's-
So there's no way to know every time what you're going to.
I think you've covered it, Ms. Cheney, by saying the designated zoning district, because now it falls into that zoning district, and now she's working under those parameters of what's required within those parameters.
Because
Yeah.
the Appendix A does call about lighting and landscaping, so it would preclude from doing that in somewhere that is not applicable.
Right, in an ag district or
Yes, and I would say
rural whatever.
if that became an issue that something more was needed, then I think that would, staff should take it to the next level before they hold that person to that. They should stop and ask.
I do think you've solved it by saying to the designated zoning district, and then.
Right, but then it comes down to, you still have that, that vague verbiage at the end to, or if it's
Well,
pertaining.
the whole sentence is vague, because it says
Yeah.
may require, or any other reasonable documentation necessary to verify compliance. But I see the struggle. The struggle is every case is different.
Can I ask a question of staff? When you have somebody come to you, they purchased a piece of property with a building, they have some conditional uses. When you tell them what they need, do you provide the ordinance? Do you show them what sections that apply to their structure? And let them know that this is available to, I think I'm asking a stupid question.
No, I don't think so, and I think that is I think that's a great point, because if you're providing it in the ordinance, there's no room for gray, which is what we're talking about, is, that verify compliance. I have to show you what you're having to comply with.
Exactly.
Isn't there a
So-
checklist? Isn't there a checklist?
There's not, well, some things, yes, like for a new subdivision, yes, there's kind of a very clear protocol to follow, but and I keep coming back to like a commercial business because there's so many variables there. Your business might require this, or maybe a gas station where there's a lighting issue because you've got a neighborhood next door.
Right.
Or there's a church and this business is wanting to come in that would affect those operating hours, things like that. So, I think by saying that it's to verify compliance, the requirement should be on the person in my chair to have to prove why we need that.
That's my
I shouldn't
point.
just be able to unilaterally say, I want whatever, because if it's to verify compliance, I have to show why it's necessary.
Let me ask if this is possible from the staff. It may be a lot, it may be too much work. But what if, we had an additional appendix and we had a few case studies of different examples? And it would say, our expectations of what meets this include but are not limited to these items. And get that way, you give the person an idea of, for whatever project they have, at least a few of them, you cover some of the spectrum, not all, obviously, but
I think
is
you
that
can.
something we could come up with? Would that be
think-
something reasonable, Mickey, or
Yeah, I'm just wondering,
to try to answer that question and reduce the vagueness of that?
so the part I'm struggling with, I agree with that, but it's, how does the person that's asking for a conditional use, how does he know what's reasonable, what's not? And
Give
what
him
it
some
boils,
examples.
right, but like she had stated, it's not. But I think at the end of the day, if the individual feels that it is not, then he has an appeal process to go through.
But if we have the most common occurring examples in an appendix, the person applying could go look at that example and say, yeah, I think I can probably do that. If there's extras, yeah, I can probably deal with that. But if he goes in pretty much blind on this,
Yep.
he or she's not gonna have any idea what they're up against.
Right, and what I was looking for was a document that somebody could read. Mr. Johnson made a good analogy of coming to staff first, but what about the individual who just read the document and did not come to staff? And then he realizes that there's all these extra things that were not in this document, requirement of him. And that's one reason why I changed the verbiage to the designated zoning district, so that he would be able to go into that designated zoning district and define what are the parameters that he has to work within. But yeah, I think that the change and the ability to appeal probably takes care of the issue.
Do we have time for one more or not?
7:44.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.